Citigroup has a new CEO. Jane Fraser is the first woman to head a major U.S. bank, and she's making some pretty big changes in her first month on the job. Joining me now, Vanessa Fuhrmans, Wall Street Journal Deputy Management Bureau Chief. Vanessa, great to have you here. Fraser's been on the job less than a month. This week, she announced some pretty impressive changes. One of them I love, no internal Zooms on Fridays. We've all had it with those, I think. What else is she doing, and what kind of a ripple effect do you think this can have, not just throughout Wall Street, but beyond?
Yeah, I noticed in the memo she sent out to her staff, she made this, I thought it was a great phrase. It was the relentlessness of the pandemic workday, which I think has affected so many people across this country after a year. You're right, the Zoom calls can be incredibly fatiguing. So she outlawed or banned Zoom calls on Fridays. I believe she declared May 28th an internal reset day for Citigroup employees to take off, and she's also simply encouraged people to create more boundaries between work and life as they go forward. The trick, of course, is that in order to make these things really happen, you have to somehow affect the supply and demand of the work that people do at companies.
Yeah, banks aren't going to get any less busy. That is definitely something she'll have to contend with. I just have to ask, though, I mean, these are pretty big changes, pretty new ideas for Wall Street for sure. Is that what happens when you finally put a woman in charge?
Well, I'm happy to say we have seen over the course of the year a lot of companies led by men institute similar types of changes, create more support for employees to handle work and family and work-life balance all around. I do think, given this is a woman at a very high-profile company and she's a very high-profile CEO appointment, I think there's hope that we could see this creating simply a benchmark, not just for Wall Street and for the finance industry, but companies across the country, basically.
Let's see more of it, that's for sure. Look, it is Equal Pay Day. We certainly cannot ignore the fact that millions of women have lost jobs or left the workforce since the start of the pandemic. You have been reporting on the toll that COVID has taken on women and the possible long-term effects here. What have you learned?
Right. Well, yes, it's been an incredibly brutal year for working women. I mean, I think it's been an incredibly hard and turbulent year for working parents across the country. But working women, it's just a fact, have borne the brunt of that. They've lost a disproportionate number of the jobs. We see now, as of this date, 1 year into this pandemic, 2.4 million women have dropped out of the workforce, and that's compared to 1.9 million men. God bless you. And
thank you.
we know from previous recessions that it takes a long time to get back from that kind of dislocation from your career, from jobs. The Great Recession of 2009 was really very much a male recession. I mean, men were more disproportionately affected in that recession simply because of the way that economic collapse happened. The pandemic has been very different. We've seen the pandemic really hit more service jobs, consumer-facing jobs, retail, all of these jobs where women make up a lot of the workforce. Last time around, it was more manufacturing, construction, more male-dominated jobs. And I bring up the last recession because we saw in the data it took years for men to come back from that recession. The representation in the workforce dropped quite a bit and is still down. And right before the pandemic, it was really quite a high point for women. For the first time in decades, and ever, they made up the majority of jobs in this country. That's no longer the case. The women have slipped back to below 50% of jobs. And it's not just about working women. It's about the economy. There's a reason why the labor market and our economy was firing on all cylinders before the pandemic, and a lot of it had to do with such great participation of women in the workforce. So this has a lot of implications for the economy. It also has a lot of implications for women's careers. We were seeing, again, in the data from companies that women have been making slow and steady gains in management ranks, also in leadership ranks. And we're going to just have to see. This is going to be a year really to watch to see whether women make the comeback from the setback that they faced this last year.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we talk again perhaps next year at this time and we have made some progress. Vanessa, it was such a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.